at 7 o'clock.
Remind me to tell you about something you mentioned law enforcement. Afterward, I gotta share a conversation.
Is somebody I arrested? We're live. Okay. We're going to call the Thursday, August 8th meeting, 2019 meeting of the Council Rock School District Finance Committee to order. Let's go around the table. To my left,
Bill Stone, Director of Business Administration.
Ed Tate, School Board.
Kristen Marcel, School Board.
Matt Frederickson, IT Director.
and Mark Bialik, School Board. So,
Mr. Solomon's on the phone.
oh, and Ed Solomon is on the phone. And Dr. Frazier may be calling in, but we're not sure. Okay. So, Bill, take it away.
All right, very good. Thank you. We have a fairly light agenda this evening. 3 items for board consideration at the August 22nd meeting, and 2 discussion items, one related to our payment process for athletic officials, and the second is an update on the Financial Advisory Committee, which this will actually become an item that goes on to the August 22nd board meeting, but I wanted to introduce the concept to you this evening. So let's get started first with the agenda items. They are all included on this slide. The first is an approval for the miscellaneous classroom technology and accessories bid. So we had previously conducted a library audio-visual bid and a computer bid. The proliferation of technology is such that we combined these items, we've added more items. It runs the gamut from bulbs and filters all the way up to smart boards. So there's a lot of things in here used in classrooms, libraries, and in Mr. Frederickson's department. So again, we're trying to get as many things as possible under the umbrella of a bid, and this was a good way to catch some of those items that have sort of grown out of the changes in the way we educate our kids in the classroom. So the total amount for this bid is $92,042. I do not have a comparison for last year because we did not have this bid. This is a new bid. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, thank you. Second item is the approval of the engagement letter for our annual audit for the school year, or the fiscal year that just ended, 2018-19. Our auditors will be BBD. They are out of Philadelphia. They've audited the school district for at least the last 4 years. These letters define the scope of the audit work, what procedures that they perform, and it also identifies what management is responsible to do. For example, I prepare a section of the audit report called Management Discussion and Analysis, which is a summary of our financial position. So that first letter lays all that out. The second letter is related to agreed upon procedures for work that the auditors perform on our tax collectors. Tax collectors are elected. They are collecting in excess of $150 million. Clearly our largest revenue source. It's really important that we get a little bit of extra work done on the tax collection process to make sure that our numbers are good. So that's that second letter. So they'll do that work after they do their main audit work for the school district, which will be coming up in September, early September.
So I have a question about that. Last year, Bob contacted me a few times and told me that BBD was going to be contacting me, asked if I had any questions, seen any irregularities or anything like that. I never heard on that. So I don't know if that's normal. I don't know if it was they may be contacting you, but I just never heard from them that I know of.
Yeah,
it's come to my email.
Yeah.
I didn't get a phone message. So
it's a pretty common practice for them to reach out to the finance chair of the board. It's also common that they will interview different people in the organization just to sort of get a sense for, kind of the tone around fraud and ethics. So they might interview Matt one year. They might interview Chuck Lambert just to get a sense of how people perceive the business department. So I'm surprised that they didn't call you, but
I'm not being critical. I just want to let you know that didn't happen. I don't know what the expectation is.
Yeah, my expectation would be that they would call you.
Okay. Now I hope they don't. forward me an email that they sent me.
That you missed, but in your spam happens to everybody. Have you worked with them before, Bill?
I have not, but I do know the principal who leads the audit, Mr. Hogan. He and I are connected through the state organization, so I trust the law.
Can we jump back to the first item just for a minute, because we did go through it quickly. I'm assuming that there's going to be a detailed memo on the board agenda that has to do with this.
There's a summary attachment which shows the awards, and then detailed list by.
And that'll be part of the public agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So any questions on the bid or the engagement letters from BBD?
Hey Bill, it's Alvin. I just have a quick question. Maybe Matt can answer this. On the first bid, the first item, the actual first item under the vendor screen, the interactive display. Is that the new smart boards that we've already put into the right Sam?
So Matt, it's the smart board 6065.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where are these scheduled to go to, Matt?
Well,
Or
I don't know if they're scheduled to go anywhere in particular, but I know that as we replace technology in the district, we always add it to the bid list in case the school decides they want to purchase it. For example, say a middle school or a high school or an elementary school wants to replace a smart board. This is what the IT department is recommending they replace it with.
okay, so these will replace the existing smart boards, so we'll go with this one then.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Hearing no other questions, I'll move on to our third agenda item for the 22nd. And it is to approve a one-time operating transfer to the food service fund. The purpose of this transfer, as you may recall from last year, is our high schools are not on the National School Lunch Program, which means that they don't have to follow the federal regulations, nor do students officially qualify for free and reduced lunches. However, when the decision was made to go off of the National School Lunch Program, the school district elected to continue to fund those students who
That's us.
who would be on free and reduced lunch otherwise. So the purpose of this transfer is to subsidize those students. So if you'll recall, the food service fund is what's called a proprietary fund. It's a standalone fund where its revenues and expenditures are accounted for separately. It's not like our general fund, which is where all of our educational expenses go through. This is standalone. So in order to fund that, we can fund it in two ways. We can fund it through.
Bill, I'm going to just stop you for a second. Ed, can you please mute your phone? Is that okay? Because my ADD is making me crazy about that noise. Thank you.
So we have the board has the option to fund the program in one of two ways. The first of which is through the profits of the high school sales only, because it is not on the National School Lunch Program. We can't commingle those funds with the profit or loss from the other schools, middle schools and elementary schools. The high school is not profitable enough to fund it on its own at this point. So the other option is to fund it through a transfer from the general fund into that food service fund. And you'll recall we made a transfer last year. It actually covered 2 years worth of free and reduced lunches. It's about $250,000. I provided the data for you on the screen here. You can see that the number is creeping up just slightly. We are seeing our counts go up just a little bit, which is pretty common from what I've seen in places more students are qualifying. The amount of the subsidy from the federal government is also going up. So we calculate this number by multiplying the number of meals times the reimbursement that we would get if we were on the program. So as those numbers both creep up, we see slight increases in that. So we're recommending that transfer be recorded to the amount of $140,519. It will be recorded in the 18-19 financial statements. So it will get accrued back to what is now last year's books.
We had an extended discussion about this, and I don't remember if that was before or after your arrival.
It was last year, before my arrival.
Yeah, we had an extended, just for the record, we had an extended philosophical discussion about the wisdom of doing this, subsidizing students' lunches from the general fund. Should a school district be doing this? And I believe there was a pretty clear consensus on the part of the board. We thought it was the right thing to do. Both not to participate in the federal program, which then requires us to do this. I think there was a dissenter who's no longer on the board, but otherwise I think the board was, there was a good degree of unanimity.
I agree, and we've had a discussion for the last couple of years, if you remember, and I'd like to see the entire district go off the free reduced lunch trips with me, to limit some of the requirements even to the middle school and the elementary school, but I'm not sure that's affordable because we'd be giving up a lot of federal subsidies. But, you know, Ed, you made a good point because we did have a good conversation about it last year, the year before. And of course, we have new board members. So philosophically, the thought is, as you said, should we be doing this? So if anybody wants to talk about that, we certainly can. You know, it is taking money out of the taxpayers' general fund. Kind of everybody's paying for the number of kids that don't have the means to pay for their lunch. And I strongly believe that we should be doing. I mean, that's a fundamental need. It's like saying some kids don't get rain protection, you know. So, but Ed, do you have any thoughts about that? You want to discuss?
No, Mark, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, good. Good point.
Yeah, I just, you know, I would hate for anybody to think that we approved a $140,000 expenditure without any discussion.
Yeah.
But we have discussed it at length.
All right. Hearing no further comments, those are the three agenda items that will move forward to August 22nd. And we can move along to the two discussion items. The first of which is regarding payments to athletic officials. So at this point, I do not yet have a recommendation to the board as to whether we should move in the direction that I'm about to describe. The reason for that is I'm working with the athletic departments and the folks at the software provider, which is here in Green, Arbiter Pay, to figure out some of the tax implications. I've not yet gotten satisfactory information about how exactly it will work regarding the 1099 process, which we'll go over briefly. And this is really an effort for the business office to improve its service to the athletic departments and also to officials who provide a valuable service to the district. So let me highlight the differences between what we're doing now and what we are potentially looking to do at some point in the 1920 school year. So right now, Council Rock issues checks to game officials, and that comes after reports which are signed by the officials, handed into the athletic directors, and then sent over to our business office. Under the new system, Council Rock would establish a bank account with Arbiter Pay, fund it periodically, so at the beginning of each of the sports seasons would fund an amount approximately equal to what we would need for those officials. And then upon still receiving that game report, because that is the audit trail that we want to maintain, was the official actually there, and that's our authorization to make the payment. An EFT would be initiated out of my office that would pay the official, and there would be a direct electronic link from that account held at Arbiter Pay to the official's bank account. So as you can see, the turnaround time, I put 1 to 5 weeks. This is all just about timing. Our checks are released the day after the school board meets. So if an official referees a game and it is, they get their paperwork in and it arrives the day that we are running our checks, they will get paid the next week. But if they officiate a game the day after we run checks, then they have to wait until the checks are released the following month. So that is a frustrating scenario for officials and for our athletic departments. They feel a lot of phone calls from officials about where is my check. Remember that these officials some of them come from a time when they were handed cash after they officiated the game. That is not going to happen in Council Rock. We're not going to do that. So the other,
they incur some out-of-pocket traveling and so forth, so.
They do. They are independent contractors. They're not employed by FAA or school districts, so they do. The other,
But don't they know? Honestly, if you're talking about 5-week lag time, that's not that bad. I'm assuming this isn't a full-time job for these people, or is it?
I would not think it is, but I can't say for certain.
And I don't want to speak to anyone's financial situation, but, and if you know that it may be a month's not bad. It takes me longer than that sometimes to get paid with things, and that's kind of normal in receivables, right? It's kind of, if you're a private contractor, it's really a receivable.
60 day.
Yeah.
So I will share that I agree wholeheartedly. I believe there are a number of school districts who are moving in this direction towards arbiter pay, and I want to be sure that we are not on the wrong end of supply and demand. Meaning, if officials can choose between officiating a game at Central Bucks, which is using arbiter pay, and officiating a game in Council Rock, which is not using arbiter pay, and getting paid in a week versus 5 weeks, there is the potential that we may be behind the curve a bit on getting quality officials for our games, which I don't anticipate it being as big a problem at the high school level. At the middle school level, however, that there are some issues in getting officials to those games in general, and I would just want to make sure that we're cognizant of the fact that we could encounter some of that. So I typically don't sympathize much with it takes too long to get paid, because we are restricted in how we pay, as is every other school district. So it's but it is, if more and more school districts move in this direction, then we want to make sure we're at least prepared and have ourselves ready for it. The other item, which could be a time saver for my office, is regarding the 1099. So that's the form that an independent contractor receives at the end of the tax year, detailing how much they've been paid. So my office prepares those in January every year and issues them to officials. So it is administratively a little bit of a burden, just as far as a process. It's all done electronically, but nevertheless, we have to compile the information, purchase the 1099s, and do the printing.
It's another thing.
It's another thing, correct. So under this agreement, arbiter would prepare the 1099s and issue them under their tax ID rather than the school district's. This is where I want to make sure that it is 100% under arbiter's tax ID, because from the information that I've seen through demonstrations on the product and from, I did look at how Central Bucks has their setup. It wasn't clear enough to me that, because the only information that resides in arbiter pay is the school district's tax ID. I need to see that a 1099 is prepared under arbiter's tax ID, because I don't want 1099s going out under Council Rock School District's tax ID.
Someone else is prepared.
Correct, because that would be problematic. So if I can get that comfort, and we can establish and maintain the proper process and internal controls around doing this, I am all in favor of making things happen more quickly and efficiently for the athletic offices and for my office. But I need to get a little more comfortable before we make that switch. So I'm not recommending that we start this for fall sports in 2 weeks. This is something that we would, most likely, if we can time it appropriately, we would implement it on January 1st. That would make a nice clean break for tax purposes. So it would be a little problematic in the athletic departments, because we would make a mid-year switch in the middle of winter sports. But I believe that, given that it will potentially be an easier process, it will likely be well received. So stay tuned on this. I hope to have a recommendation back to you at some point in the near future. But I will answer any questions that you folks might have.
Any questions?
I think generally it's good to look at ways to be more efficient, to streamline the process. So I think that's a great direction. But thank you for looking into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how much time would it save your office, do you think?
I'll have to do a little bit of quantifying. I mean, the 1099 process is, we still have to issue some 1099, so there's, we don't gain a lot of time savings, by eliminating a few hundred 1099s. But as far as processing checks and just phone call time, it's, I don't want to say it's insignificant, but it's also not, hours and hours of time. We still run lots of checks, and we will continue to run lots of checks. But if I look at this a little more holistically from the athletic department, it will integrate with the scheduling system, and there's just some nice touches that will make things a little bit more seamless from their perspective. We may have some cumulative time savings that can free us up to do some better things.
And how does Arbiter Pay get paid?
Arbiter Pay has a fee associated with it. It's $1.95 per payment.
Who pays that?
The school district would pay that, and it would be withdrawn out of our account. So we would incur a fee on it, and that's where I need to do a little bit more analysis around how much time exactly are we saving on 1099s to justify going from the sunk cost of my folks processing checks and 1099s to $1.95 fee to.
Yeah, it could be $300-400 per payment, right? And more importantly, the checks and balances. So I see game reports signed by officials delivered to your office, and we review them. And now it's game reports signed by officials delivered to the business offices. Where's the audit there?
Right. So this step here does not change. So the audit trail that I want to maintain is that, did this official show up to officiate the game? Will the coach sign off on it, and will the athletic director sign off on it? It still has to come to my office for somebody to push the button to make payments. That is not a responsibility I intend to distribute out to the buildings. In no other area of our operation do we have individuals who are authorized to make payments directly to folks. That all happens in my office, so it would stay there. So I believe we maintain the appropriate audit controls by continuing to have that game report signed. That's our documentation that the individual was there. We can maintain that for backup,
Okay.
to justify the payment.
Yeah, I'm interested in that fee amount. Either quantify the fee amount and you offset to savings in time.
I can do that.
That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the last discussion for this evening, which is the introduction sort of officially to the Financial Advisory Committee, which I will shorthand, as we do frequently in education, to the FAC. So let me first talk about what the administration's intentions are with the Financial Advisory Committee.
You went 2 slides forward.
Thank you. So I don't want to prejudice the work of this committee. We are tapping into financial experts outside the realm of school finance, specifically to get some varied perspective on how we run our operation. And so for me to insert myself too much into the work of the committee, I think would overly prejudice the direction that the committee would take. I want this to be as pure as possible in the avenues that they travel down and the recommendations that they make. Now, certainly, I need to be there to support this because school finance is different than private industry, where these folks are coming from. So they need to learn a little bit about how we operate. I am not training a group of new business managers, but they need to have good education and support. They need to know that if they start to head down a rabbit hole where we know legally we can't make any changes, then I need to be able to redirect them back somewhere more appropriate. So I don't have any objectives around the process, the work that gets done, the recommendations that they make. But I do have two goals, two outcomes that I would like to see. The first is that the folks are regular attendees at Finance Committee meetings. We are very fortunate to have YouTube. I would presume that some of the folks are watching this right now. Some will sit in the room. But I want them to observe how we do business and make recommendations around how we operate. The second item is that I want to have recommendations completed in the fall of 2020, which would inform our budget process for 21-22. So not the budget we are about to develop coming up in the fall, or start to develop in the fall, but the following budget. And the reason for that is I believe pretty strongly in as you know, making recommendations on any process, is that you need time to see how the process works. So I'm asking the committee to observe the development of the 2021 budget and make recommendations that the board can consider for the 21-22 budget. So I have thought about what a committee structure could look like. Now, again, I don't have precise recommendations on exactly what it should look like, but I do believe that the most effective way that this will function is under this idea of having a core committee and subcommittees that work around it. We did have enough folks interested that I think we can support this model, and it will allow us to have folks who lay out the ground rules, the rules of engagement, and then also develop based on the feedback from the committee on the directions that it takes. We'll be able to rely on more community members who were interested under this model. We'll get more specific expertise in different areas, and we'll be able to dive in deeper on specific areas of our budget that may be larger, more impactful, this feels like it's a good structure.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Never mind. So you're going to answer it back.
Okay. So my recommendation is to form a core committee of 4 members, and I will introduce you to those members on the next slide. And then develop those subcommittees to do those specific areas of research, do those deep dives under the leadership of the core committee. So the core committee will be responsible for laying out how things will work, and then we'll establish, after getting some of that education, they'll establish what the committee's work will be. So I did brainstorm just a few ideas on what a subcommittee might look at. So looking at ways to generate alternative revenue, looking at program effectiveness, and introducing the concept of academic return on investment. So that's something that I would like to introduce to the committee and have them pursue a little bit and help push me to try to quantify. If we are investing $50,000 in a program, are we generating results out of that program? I think that will be an important metric and not one that you see often in the school world. But you could also get into some of these bigger focus areas. So we could talk about transportation costs. We could talk about healthcare costs, and have people get into those areas. We can look at IT. Matt is probably unhappy with me right now seeing that up on the screen, but we spend money there, and I believe that we need to take a look at how we do things and challenge.
It might even generate more money somehow.
That is very possible. The Alternative Revenue Committee can do that. However, as I've stated, these are not my recommended subcommittees. I want the committee itself, under the core committee's leadership, to make the decisions on what subcommittees they would like to see. And I will help support that and educate them.
I'm assuming they can come and go, too, right? So we may have a subcommittee for real estate, like capital, building and capital needs, and then they can be inactive for a while.
Correct. Yes.
So although you had, I think, 4 subcommittees up there?
I did, and that was just.
But that could be 5 or it could be 3.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely right.
Great.
And one committee could focus on transportation, develop its recommendations, and then move on to healthcare insurance if they come up with enough ideas where they need to
Sure.
structure it in that way. So these are the 11 folks who applied to be involved in the committee, and the 4 individuals who I'm recommending for the core committee. They are highlighted in blue. I hope you can see the contrast. We have a nice variation of folks on there. We have I conducted virtual interviews with these folks on in late July, just to sort of get to know them and kind of understand their thinking and how they were approaching the advisory committee. We have really nice breadth and depth of experience. There's some retirees here, some folks who have lots of experience in their field, and we have some young folks who will bring different perspectives. And I think it's a really nice blend of folks on there.
Not that it's a requirement, but all these people live in the district?
They all do live in the district. That actually was a requirement.
Was it a requirement?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did.
It's interesting, I think I told you, I contacted a couple, both of whom would have been terrific. And their first question was, well, we just moved up to Strawberry Township. Would you bet? I said, no, I think it's really important that, you be a district resident. The one person I know on there personally is a terrific, will be a terrific member of the committee. So
right.
I think that's
It's very impressive, folks up there. I'm glad we had so many step up, and I think you included everybody.
I did. I felt that if an individual was willing to step forward and volunteer in their community, if I would have had 80 people, I would have felt differently, but I had a nice number that I felt everybody could join.
Good.
that's a good thing to point out, that everybody who applied was accepted.
So the last slide here is just the recommended schedule. And again, I'm not putting a lot of structure around what the schedule looks like, but in the fall, our work is to form the committee, develop the rules of engagement, and talk about what the work products might be. And again, the first conversation that I'm going to have is with that core committee to tell them that these are the administration's objectives out of this. This is almost show them these slides and talk through the plan with them. And then if you think about the process as it lines up with the seasons, we start with educate, right? So that'll be in the winter, probably go into the spring a little bit. Happens concurrently with observing the budget process, so they'll see as we go through all of the Act 1 steps and the discussions we have here at Finance Committee, they'll be observing, and then once that's completed in the following summer, they'll be making their recommendations, developing their reports. So it probably is about a 12-month process, maybe a 14-month process to get us to the point where they are next door making a presentation, or in this room making a presentation about what they found and what they're recommending.
Really great. That's very exciting, and I want to publicly thank everybody that applied and that's agreeing to step in. This is not going to be a small amount of work, and not going to be a small amount of time. So you've got, as you said, people that are retired, but people that have businesses that are still working. And we know personally the amount of time involved in this district, and it's going to be helpful. And I want to thank you and the administration as well, and the board, because this is something that other districts aren't doing, right? As a whole, I'm sure there's some out there, but again, Councilor Rock being on the leading edge of some kind of stuff. And maybe we come out of here and we really don't have anything we can act on, but hey, we looked at it. I'm hoping that's not the case. I really applaud everybody for it.
Yeah, that's occurred to me, that to some extent, I think they'll be validating that what we're doing now is smart and fiscally responsible and so forth. Because I don't expect the big idea. But if there's several ideas that can be implemented that are, even if they're modest, that's a real accomplishment.
Listen, if we're able to bring in an extra $50,000 of revenue, or and that helps our school lunch budget, or technology, but that's a win. That's a win. Absolutely. Hopefully, it's more like 500,000.
few more zeros.
But we'll see. That's great, thank you. I'm very excited.
So what I will do is I will develop an action for the board to act on the 22nd to formally establish the committee under the board's authority. And I've asked that committee members who are in town if they are able to attend. I would be willing to make the same presentation again to the community.
I think that'd be great. I think that'd be worth the time at the board meeting, yeah, for sure.
That's why
Wonderful.
I will do that.
Great.
And that's all we have for tonight, folks.
Okay. Any questions about anything? There is no public here, so there's no public comment. Any board comment?
Good meeting.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.